If you have had a traumatic childhood or traumatic events, and they really are of a more interpersonal nature, which is really the root of CPTSD. The root of the trauma and complex trauma is about relational trauma, interpersonal trauma. And nowhere is that more activated, I believe, than during the holidays, during birthdays and things like that too. These wished for fantasy type experiences that we often wish we'd had in childhood, that we wish we had now. And nowhere is that more clear, I think, than during the holidays. And so I thought I'd just make a quick video on CPTSD in the holidays, and also just kind of give you some validation and knowledge, hopefully, that you will find helpful, and also some tools and tips you might be able to use to help get you through this next sort of 30-ish days in terms of the holidays, okay? So before I get started though, I'm Dr. Kim Sage. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I hope you will find this channel and this content really directed towards, mental health around relationships, childhood trauma, and really living your best life. I hope you'll find it helpful in whatever way that you can. So please don't forget to subscribe and click the bell if you'd like to get notified of when I post new videos, and please always feel free to post your thoughts, stories, ideas. I truly do welcome and appreciate them, and I am beyond insanely grateful to be at 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so, so much. I truly believe that therapy is something that truly is a luxury. It's a luxury, and so many people don't get therapy or they don't get great therapy. And I always think with patients, I wish I could supplement it with all these other ideas and concepts that oftentimes we just don't have time for in therapy at times. And so that's really my goal with this channel, is to really supplement your life and provide information and healing and resources that I truly do hope help you heal your life. Okay, so let's get started. So when we think about complex trauma, right, we think about the range of things that we often can experience. And I think that I marked this page in this book, which I highly recommend, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving by the amazing Pete Walker. And he talks a lot about sort of what the symptoms are, where they come from, how to heal them. And you will find a lot of my content does include many of his thoughts and many others in the trauma field. But, the reality is that emotional triggers and sensory triggers and all those things are everywhere during the holiday season, right? From the smells, the sights, the sounds, the tastes. All of it can sort of pull us back into our childhood or into the reality that we're not living the fantasy we'd hoped to live in our adult lives today. And I think it kind of, for many reasons connects to this idea of the holiday reality versus the holiday fantasy, the holiday we wished for, the family we wished for. All of that is super triggering. And it does also ignite feelings of shame and loneliness and isolation and longing. It can really bring up our attachment wounds, our mood issues, right? Our just inability to navigate our emotions and to regulate ourselves, because it really is everywhere, this idea of what the perfect, holiday could have looked like, because we're watching Instagram stories and we're reading articles or we're looking at magazines, and there are these beautiful holiday spreads, even now in COVID. And I think even our trees or Hanukkah, or whether we celebrate Christmas really at all, even if you don't, the ideas and images are everywhere. And so I think that reality is that not only does it bring up all of our complex, sort of wounds, but deep inside we feel often a deep sense of longing and loneliness in our soul. Even if we are filled with other people in our lives and relationships that are good and healthy and strong, that does make a difference and it does help. Even including your kids and your pets, I think those relationships can be healing. Certainly healthy partnerships can be very healing. But even in the midst of all of that, even with a great therapist relationship, right, there's oftentimes still this piece we all carry around. And I think most of us do on some level. It just varies how deep the well is of loneliness and longing. Because at the end of the day, what is that, expression that we come into the world alone and we leave this world alone? And so I think that really gets ignited in the holiday season, and it's really hard to avoid. And it's like, well, what do you do with that? And so I think that the reality is we often try to find ways to cope. We shut down, we get negative, we get unhappy, we avoid, we drink too much, we go out and try to numb out in some way. And so I just wanted to give you a few quick reminders that your trauma matters, your triggers matter, your story matters, and make sure you're doing that work to acknowledge and be sort of self-compassionate, maybe using the self-compassion exercises I'll link down below, but just finding ways to know that, your story does matter. And the differences between now and childhood is that in childhood or early life, or even during a trauma, we often had no power and no control. But today, as I always say, we do. And so what does that power look like? It really looks like setting boundaries from the beginning, right? And so nowhere is this year better, I think, than any year before, than if you need to use the excuse of COVID to get out of going into a holiday situation that is going to be maybe unsafe for you in terms of COVID, or politically triggering, or traumatically wounding, or just not healthy and unhelpful. Sometimes we're not in a place in our recovery and our childhood and our skills where we can actually tell the person, well, I don't want to be with you because you're triggering. Sometimes it's okay to create situations and excuses to get yourself out. And so this year, I would say, might be a good one. If you're just not ready to confront this person or situation, but you are ready to confront the fact that you're not going to keep putting yourself in a difficult, triggering, wounding dynamic, maybe you can use COVID this year, all right? But if you're not going to use COVID, or you are still in the bubble of celebrating, or maybe you're not in a bubble, that's a whole different conversation, right? But the reality is that certain things are going to trigger us more. And so the first thing I would say is topics. This year, the topic of COVID, whatever you believe in political situations, right? All of that stuff, it's important to know where you're willing to go down that road and where you're not. It's okay to disengage, to sort of create a bubble around yourself, around, oh God, Aunt Mary's bringing up this topic, I'm going to go get a snack in the other room. You do not have to defend and engage every topic. You don't. And it doesn't mean that you're not an advocate or believe in your beliefs, but sometimes it's easier to just wrap that bubble, disengage, say, I don't really want to talk about it, or just, I just feel overwhelmed right now. I'll let you guys discuss this issue. I'm going to go get a brownie or something like that, right? So be mindful of your topics that you engage in. The next one is knowing that you have a plan in terms of when you're going and when you're coming home from whatever you're doing. It's okay to reduce that time, set a good boundary, and be clear about what you will do and what you won't do. If you have to have an excuse like, oh, I have to go home and feed the dog, whatever it is, make sure you're clear with yourself and your partner on what that looks like. Along those same lines, you can have a target, like a cue word with your partner, like ornament or Santa or pineapple or something like that. When you're like, okay, we gotta get out of here. This is not good. And, or if you're by yourself, a cue feeling inside. Now, what does that mean? A feeling of like, my chest is tightening because I'm getting anxiety from this conversation or this experience, or my mom's saying rude things to me again, or she's focusing on my food habits or whatever. Or your head feels tight, or your stomach starts to hurt. Beginning to recognize that trauma truly does live in the body, right? It lives in the body and in the mind. And so when we're oftentimes triggered, it hits our body, I would say, pretty much always, even before our minds catch up and realize. And so when you start to feel like that feeling's coming up, you try to leave the room, you try to do some breathing, it didn't get better, that's an okay time for you to say, you know what, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. Make up an excuse. Say you don't feel well. Maybe you have symptoms, you have to go home. But know that recognizing in your own body is your responsibility so that you could protect yourself. Because if you don't see it coming, you can't protect yourself. Along those lines, it's important to know that you have a right to leave and protect yourself. You don't need to explain it or justify it or minimize it or get it validated. You, on your own terms, in charge of your own life and own body today, have a right to say no and a right to leave and protect yourself. The next one is be mindful of what you do commit to, right? If you're not feeling safe in terms of the virus, or you're not feeling safe in terms of the experiences, you do not have to say yes to anything you don't want to. And be mindful of how many things you do say yes to, especially if you're feeling triggered and overwhelmed and need to protect yourself. Know that it's okay to set that boundary about what you will do and what you won't do. The next thing, as I said in the beginning, is to have compassion for yourself, right? To do some exercises in self-love, to be really honoring of your story. You might want to journal. You might want to talk to a friend or your therapist. It's okay to know that you're not really ready to deal with everything, but to know that you are ready to face whatever you need to face today in terms of protecting yourself. And if you need help doing that, you can enlist your partner, your friends, whoever you need to, but know that having self-love and compassion, that you didn't create this story, but you are trying to heal it. Next thing to know is that it's important that you have the power and ability to make new traditions, to try things differently, to create new ways of celebrating. And that might mean the foods you eat this year, the way you decorate your tree. This year, for the first time, I bought a white tree. I never do that. I've never bought a fake tree in my life. but it's actually beautiful. And it was just a way to say, you know what, like forget about it. 2020 is just completely off the charts, and I needed something new with my family to switch it up. Now it might seem silly, it's just a tree, but it's given a whole different vibe to the room and made me kind of lift it up a bit. And so just know that you are able to create, new ways of wrapping gifts, or new ways of, like I said, celebrating. You just really want to make room for that. Like make room psychologically, mentally, emotionally, physically in the space that you can create new traditions and holiday celebrations. The next two really are things you need to do to care for yourself as well. And they are to use mindfulness strategies like breathing techniques, guided imagery, visualization. I posted a few videos at the beginning of COVID here on, many examples of those, and feel free to go on apps like Insight Timer, Headspace, Calm, and find new ways to calm and soothe your body, whether it's through yoga, like all of that stuff. But know that you're going to need to do something to calm that nervous system energy inside, that fight or flight, that freeze or fawn, and give yourself new strategies. So don't be afraid to start experimenting with those now. The last one is don't be afraid to ask and reach out for more social support, whether it's through your therapist, through friends, through books, through podcasts, that it's okay to reach out and say, I'm struggling and I don't know how to get through this by myself. I'm feeling really alone. I'm feeling really triggered. It's never too late to start healing your life. It really isn't. I know that this time of year can be incredibly difficult. So no matter what your story, no matter what your symptoms and trauma, know that you don't have to be alone, that there are ways to protect yourself, and that you do deserve to do that, and it is your right to do that. All right? So thanks for watching. Hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and well, guys. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and please don't forget to subscribe. And thank you so much to my 1,000 subscribers. I truly am so grateful, and I do want to make videos that are worth your while and that are helpful to you. So please feel free to post and share your thoughts, ideas, and suggestions. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.